It all started with a letter. In 1939, the world was on the edge of a great war. A very famous scientist, Albert Einstein, wrote a letter to the President of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He warned the president about a new kind of weapon. This weapon would be more powerful than anything ever seen before. Scientists in Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, were already trying to build it. They were working with something called uranium atoms. When these tiny atoms were split, they released a huge amount of energy. The letter told the president that if Germany built this bomb first, it could win the war. The United States had to act fast. President Roosevelt knew this was serious. He understood that a bomb this powerful could change everything. He made a secret decision. The United States would build its own atomic bomb. This was the beginning of a top-secret plan. It was called the Manhattan Project. The name was a code, meant to hide what it was really about. No one was supposed to know. The goal was simple but incredibly difficult. Build an atomic bomb before the enemy did. It was a race against time, and the future of the world depended on who would win. The project would bring together the smartest minds in the country. The government needed someone to lead this massive effort. They chose a U.S. Army general named Leslie Groves. General Groves was a tough and organized leader. He knew how to get big projects done quickly. He was a builder, not a scientist, but he understood the importance of the mission. His job was to find the people, the places, and the materials needed to create the bomb. He had to make sure everything stayed a secret. He was the boss who made sure all the different parts of the project worked together like a giant, hidden machine. He was the perfect person for a job that seemed almost impossible. To build the bomb, the project needed the best scientists in the world. Many had escaped from Europe to get away from Hitler. Famous names like Enrico Fermi and Leo Szilard joined the cause. These men were brilliant thinkers who understood the physics behind the atom, but the person chosen to lead the scientific team was an American physicist named J. Robert Oppenheimer. He was a genius who could understand complex ideas and explain them to others. General Groves picked him to be the director of the secret laboratory where the bomb would be designed and built. Together, these scientists would work on a puzzle that could unlock the power of the universe. General Groves and J. Robert Oppenheimer needed a place to work. It had to be secret. It had to be far away from any cities. They found the perfect spot in the desert of New Mexico. It was a remote place on top of a flat mountain, a mesa. There was only a small school there. They decided to build a secret city right there. The government bought all the land and closed it off to the world. They built houses, labs, and workshops. This secret town was given a code name, Site Y. To the people who lived there, it was simply known as Los Alamos. It was a place that did not exist on any map. Life in Los Alamos was strange. Everyone who came to work there had to leave their old lives behind. They could not tell their families or friends where they were going or what they were doing. All mail going in and out was read by sensors. Phone calls were monitored. The whole city was surrounded by a high fence with guards. People lived with their families in simple houses, but they were all part of one big secret. They were told not to talk about their work, even with their spouses. The only thing people knew was that their work was important for winning the war. It was a lonely and mysterious life. The scientists and engineers at Los Alamos worked day and night. They came from all over the world, a team of brilliant minds focused on a single goal. They were trying to solve problems that no one had ever solved before. How do you start a chain reaction? How do you control it? How do you design a device that can hold it all together until the exact right moment? They wrote long equations on chalkboards and built strange-looking machines. The pressure was immense. They knew that their friends and family were fighting and dying in the war. They believed that their work could bring the war to an end and save lives. The secrecy made everyone feel isolated. People used fake names on their driver's licenses. Babies born in the Los Alamos hospital had their place of birth listed as a post office box number. No one could leave the town without special permission. Despite the rules, people tried to live normal lives. They had parties, went hiking in the beautiful mountains, and started families. But the secret was always there, a heavy weight on everyone's shoulders. They were all prisoners of their own important mission, hidden away in a city on a hill, working together to build the world's most dangerous weapon. After years of hard work, the scientists were ready. They had designed a bomb, but they had a big question. Would it actually work? There was only one way to find out. They had to test it. They chose a remote spot in the New Mexico desert for the test. They called the test site Trinity. They built a tall steel tower and placed the bomb, which they called the gadget, on top of it. On the morning of July 16, 1945, everyone gathered in bunkers far away from the tower. They were nervous and excited. They were about to find out if their secret work had succeeded. The world was about to change. At 5:29 a.m., the countdown finished. A blinding white light filled the desert, brighter than 1,000 suns. It was so bright that a blind girl in a town miles away asked, "What was that flash?" Then came a deep, deafening roar that rolled across the land, shaking the ground. A giant mushroom cloud of fire and smoke rose into the sky, climbing higher and higher, miles into the air. The steel tower that held the bomb had disappeared. It had turned into vapor. The sand on the desert floor had melted into green glass. The scientists looked on in awe and fear. They had done it. They had unlocked the power of the atom. The test was a huge success, but the feeling was complicated. Robert Oppenheimer watched the massive, terrifying cloud rise. He later remembered a line from a holy Hindu book, the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He knew that he had given humanity a terrible new power. Other scientists were silent. Some were relieved that their work had not been for nothing. Others felt a deep sense of dread. They had created the most powerful weapon in history. Now politicians and generals would decide how to use it. The secret of Los Alamos was about to be revealed to the entire world. With the successful test, the project moved to its final stage. By this time, the war in Europe was over. Germany had surrendered, but the war with Japan was still raging, and it was costing many lives. President Harry S. Truman, who became president after Roosevelt died, had a difficult choice to make. He decided to use the new bomb to force Japan to surrender and end the war quickly. Two bombs were prepared. One was called Little Boy, and the other was called Fat Man. They were loaded onto planes and sent to an island in the Pacific Ocean. The secret of the Manhattan Project was about to become history. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named the Enola Gay flew over Japan. It dropped the first atomic bomb, Little Boy, on the city of Hiroshima. The bomb exploded with incredible force, destroying most of the city in an instant. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. The destruction was immense. A few days later, Japan surrendered, and World War II was finally over. The Manhattan Project had achieved its goal. The bombs had ended the deadliest war in human history. The world celebrated the end of the fighting, but it was a celebration mixed with a new kind of fear. The news of the atomic bombs shocked everyone. The secret was out. For the first time, people understood the true power that science had created. The world had entered the atomic age. This new age brought big questions. What did it mean to live in a world where a single bomb could destroy an entire city? What if other countries built their own atomic bombs? This led to a new kind of conflict called the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union entered a race to build more and more powerful nuclear weapons. People everywhere lived with the fear that a nuclear war could start at any moment. The scientists who built the bomb had complex feelings. Many were proud that they had helped end the war. They believed they had saved the lives of many soldiers who would have died in an invasion of Japan. But many also felt a great sense of guilt and responsibility. They saw the terrible destruction and the suffering of the people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Some, like Oppenheimer, spent the rest of their lives arguing for control over nuclear weapons. They warned the world about the dangers of a nuclear arms race. They had opened a door that could never be closed again, and they worried about what humanity would do with this knowledge. The Manhattan Project remains one of the most important events in history. It showed what humans could achieve when they worked together on a single, focused goal. It was a story of scientific genius, secret cities, and incredible pressure. But it is also a story with a dark side. The project gave us a weapon with the power to destroy ourselves. It created a world where we must live with the constant threat of nuclear war. The legacy of the Manhattan Project is both a great achievement and a permanent warning. It reminds us that with great power comes the great responsibility to use it wisely.